Hey everyone, and welcome back to today's Explainer. We're going to be decoding the hidden economic forces that drive pretty much all of our everyday purchasing decisions. Seriously, if you've ever stood frozen in a grocery store aisle staring at, 50 different brands of cereal, or if you've ever wondered why there's a coffee shop on literally every corner and they can all still charge a premium for a latte, well, you are looking directly at the market matrix we're about to unpack today. So let's pull up the agenda real quick. We're going to cover the hybrid market reality, the three pillars of this kind of competition, the long-run equilibrium, the concepts of markup and excess capacity, and finally, how advertising acts as a signal. All right, let's jump right in. Section 1, the hybrid market reality, beyond monopolies and perfect competition. Okay, let's completely shatter that classic textbook illusion that markets only exist in two extreme states, right? Like it's either a pure, ruthless monopoly on one side or a perfectly competitive landscape on the other. What we're actually dealing with in the real world is defined as monopolistic competition. It's a true hybrid reality. In this specific setup, you have many firms selling products that are similar, but, and this is absolutely crucial, they are not identical. Because of that tiny little difference, each firm essentially holds a mini monopoly over its own specific product or brand. But at the exact same time, it is intensely competing with a bunch of other firms for the exact same consumer base. It's a fascinating paradox, really. Moving right along to Section 2, Three Pillars of Competition, the Market Source Code. So, we can clearly outline three core pillars that build this market environment. Number 1, a multitude of sellers. Basically, there are a lot of firms fighting tooth and nail for your attention. Number 2, and honestly, this is the big one, product differentiation. Each firm's product is at least slightly different from the rest. Because they aren't just selling perfectly interchangeable commodities, they aren't mere price takers. They face a downward-sloping demand curve, which basically means they actually have some market power to set their own prices. And number 3, free entry and exit. There are no major barriers blocking the door. If there's money to be made, new firms rush right in. If everyone is losing money, they pack up and leave. Which brings us to Section 3, the long-run equilibrium, projecting the data. Sure, firms might make a quick profit or take a loss in the short run, but let's see how this all behaves mechanically over the long haul. What's really interesting here is the exact point of tangency. In the long run, as new firms see a profitable market and enter it, they start stealing customers, right? That shifts the incumbent firm's demand curves to the left. And this keeps happening until economic profit is driven down to exactly zero. Notice right where the downward-sloping demand curve just barely touches that U-shaped average total cost curve. They are perfectly tangent. They touch, but they never cross. This means the price equals average total cost, leaving a maximum economic profit of absolutely zero. Yet this tangency happens exactly where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which fulfills the golden rule for profit maximization. It's a beautifully precise, if slightly brutal, equilibrium. All right, Section 4, markup and excess capacity, the inefficiency anomaly. So here's the catch. While this zero profit equilibrium sounds fair and perfectly balanced, it's actually technically inefficient. We've got two structural quirks going on here. First up, firms operate with what economists call excess capacity. Instead of producing at the absolute lowest point of their average total cost, their most efficient scale, they produce less. They just sort of hang out on the downward-sloping portion of the curve. They could produce more and lower their average cost, but the only way to sell that extra product would be to drop their prices. Second, they maintain a markup. Even though their profits have been driven to zero, the price tag they slap on the item always exceeds the marginal cost of making one more unit. And you can really see the contrast when you put them side by side. Look at the perfectly competitive firm. They operate at the absolute bottom of the average total cost bowl, maximum efficiency, no excess capacity whatsoever, and price equals marginal cost. But then look at our monopolistic competitor. They're operating with excess capacity, deliberately producing a smaller quantity than the efficient scale. And check out the price. It sits way up above the marginal cost curve. This markup exists purely because the firm has that sliver of market power we talked about earlier. To kind of bridge the gap between these abstract graphs and actual human behavior on the street, let's put this in perspective. Imagine walking up to a business owner and asking this defining hypothetical question. Would you like to see another customer come through your door right now, ready to buy from you at your current price? A perfectly competitive firm, they honestly wouldn't care. Their price exactly equals their marginal costs, so the profit on that extra unit is zero. Why bother? But a monopolistically competitive firm, they are absolutely desperate for that customer. Because their price includes that markup over marginal cost, every single new customer represents pure, raw profit. This constant driving hunger is beautifully summarized by this old, lighthearted economic quip. Monopolistically competitive markets are those in which sellers send Christmas cards to the buyers. They literally have to court you because every extra unit sold at their posted price goes straight to their bottom line. And that leads us to our final part today, Section 5, Advertising as a Signal, Decoding Behavior. Because they're so hungry for customers, it drives some pretty aggressive real-world tactics. This archival cartoon perfectly captures the mood. Think about it. If your price exceeds your marginal cost, it makes total sense to spend an absolute fortune trying to attract new buyers. The shop owner basically says, given the downward slope of our demand curve, order more jelly beans. It's a funny, precise acknowledgement that because they have market power and a markup, the only rational move is to aggressively push more product out the door. And how exactly do you push that product? Advertising. Which brings us to the signaling theory of advertising. Let's use the source's example of Kellogg's versus General Mills. Think about a massive, multi-million-dollar ad campaign for a brand new cereal. Defenders of advertising argue that the actual content of the ad, the actor smiling, the catchy jingle, the bright colors, is completely irrelevant. The real message is the willingness to spend the money. If Kellogg's burns $10 million on an ad, it signals to you, the consumer, that they have a high-quality product. Why? Well, because an incredibly expensive ad campaign only pays off if the product is good enough to generate repeat buyers. A company wouldn't spend millions signaling a terrible cereal that you'll only try once. So the sheer expense is actually a rational, undeniable data point signaling quality to the market. To kind of wrap this all up and cement it in your mind, let's take a look at this summary matrix. Notice how monopolistic competition sits perfectly in the middle of everything. It shares the many firms and free entry traits with perfect competition, which is exactly why economic profit is driven to zero in the long run. But it behaves with the downward sloping demand curve and the markup power of a true monopoly. It is the ultimate economic hybrid. So, we're going to conclude today's explainer with a bit of a provocative thought about market externalities. The entry of all these different firms gives us an incredible variety of products, right? I mean, it's a massive positive externality for consumers who love having 50 choices of cereal. But it also creates a negative business stealing externality, and it forces us to constantly pay a markup over the actual physical cost of production. So as you navigate the modern world, I want to leave you with this. Is the immense cost of having endless product variety really worth the persistent markup we pay for it every single day? Definitely keep that in mind next time you're wandering down the grocery store aisle. Until our next session, keep learning and keep questioning the data.